This is a review of the Henry Repeating Arms lever action 22 Magnum with the octagon barrel. The stock on this rifle is what's known as a straight stock as opposed to a pistol grip stock. As you can see, it just comes straight back. It's kind of an original style and it is pretty stylish. The comb on this gun is not parallel to the straight lines of the stock. It looks kind of low, but that's so that you can get your cheek down so you can line it up with these rear sights. Speaking of sights, these semi-buckhorn rear sights are, I gather, an original sighting arrangement for this style of rifle. The sights really are where I get the biggest problems with this gun, outside of the ammunition, of course. They just don't work for me in my eyes. Now, I have poor eyesight, I have astigmatism, I have pretty significant corrections and prescriptions. So, for most people, this really wouldn't be a problem. But it's got a brass bead front sight and a semi buckhorn rear. If I can get the camera down low enough. It's also got this white diamond right there, and it just really screws me up in my eyeballs trying to see the relatively dim brass dot above this very bright white diamond on top of a black background that is the rear sight. It just doesn't work for me. Now, if it works for you, it probably works really, really good, but for me and my piss poor eyesight, it just doesn't work very well. Now, the solution to me not being able to work those sights very well is to mount an optic. And you mount optics on rails. I don't know if you can see it very well on this guy, but it doesn't have very much of a rail to speak of. Its rail is a rimfire dovetail, and it was something I hadn't really ever encountered or seen before using this gun. Now, a rimfire rail is an old technology. It's not really very modern and it's not made to handle recoil very well. So even though I did find a Picatinny adapter to mount on top of the rail, it wasn't very sturdy because these rails just aren't meant to be sturdy. And even though I did get it zeroed and I shot pretty well with the red dot I had mounted on it when it was zeroed, I kind of dropped it off of a counter at standard counter height, landed right on the optic, and completely destroyed my zero. And it being early part of 2013, 22 Magnum was not very easy to find, and to this day, the beginning of 2016, it still isn't very easy to find. I just never had the opportunity or the ammunition to go re-zero it. And that's why you don't see that red dot on there today. And that's why I don't shoot it very much. The action on this gun, on the other hand, is excellent. It has the smoothest action on any lever action I have ever felt. When I first got this gun, it was the first lever action I had ever handled or messed with. And when I picked it up, I thought, man, that action is really nice. And then, with the success that I had with this gun, I went and investigated other lever actions of different calibers from Marlin and such. And and once I touched those lever actions, I realized my Henry doesn't just have a good lever action, it has a great lever action. And to this day, it is one of the best, if not the best, lever action I've ever handled. Now, there may be a better lever action out there, but I've never touched it. One of the problems I did have with this gun related to the ammo, besides just the overall lack of availability, is every now and then I would have some feeding issues. Now, I don't attribute this to the gun, I just attribute it to the fact that a 22 Magnum is an extremely long, narrow cartridge. Sometimes I think the 22 Magnum wasn't really even developed very well. I don't think it was really even developed to be fed. I think it was just developed to be a bigger rimfire cartridge, and anything beyond that fact was completely overlooked while it was being developed. So, I don't know if I'd recommend this gun in 22 Magnum But if you really like 22 Magnum, or if you get it in a different caliber, go for it. One thing you need to keep in mind is the disassembly, the field stripping of this gun. It's not something I would do all the time. You actually have to break out a flathead screwdriver to take out these two screws, and then you pop the cover off, and then you can pull the bolts out, and then you can, well, it's just really complicated, and it's not something you want to do often. You can tell that this gun was primarily designed a long time ago, before, like routine maintenance and field stripping of a gun was something that was expected of the average Joe. So don't expect to take this gun down easily and often and without a lot of hassle, because it's kind of a hassle. Now let's talk about the barrel on this gun. This gun has an 18-inch octagon barrel, obviously chambered for 22 Magnum, and it is extremely accurate. When I actually had a red dot on it so I could actually use the sights on it and aim it properly, I was getting solid groups. Like at 30 yards, I was putting 5-shot groups in an area less than a quarter. Now, granted, it's probably only 2.5, 3 MOA or something like that, but from what I can tell, that's pretty good for a lever action, and I think it's pretty darn good for a rimfire lever action. So, inaccurate this gun is not. Now, as with any lever action, when you're talking about the barrel, you need to talk about the tubular magazine connected to the barrel. It holds about 9 or 10 rounds of 22 Magnum, depending on if you've got one in the chamber or not. And as with all Henry lever actions, it loads here. You pull the little tubular magazine insert out, you slide it out, you put the rounds in right there. You kind of let them fall back down towards the action. You put the barrel insert back in, and that's what gives you your spring tension to feed them into the magazine. Unlike Marlins, which have a loading gate right here underneath the ejection port, Henrys don't have a loading gate. Makes them hard to top off, but it makes them easy to unload. Some people think it's a feature, some people think it's a flaw. I would like a loading gate, but that's just me. Finally, let's talk about the trigger. The trigger on this thing is actually really nice. Maybe that's part of why it shoots so well when you can actually aim it. I don't know. But it has a nice trigger on it. It's pretty crisp. It isn't very creepy. It does have a little bit of pre-travel, but it has zero slack. You put your finger on it, and there's no take up. It moves maybe 1/8 of an inch backwards, and then you don't really even hit a wall. It just kind of goes through the wall that you've been pushing through the whole time. I wouldn't say it's the best trigger in the world. If you're used to really nice triggers, this isn't that great of a trigger. But if you're not just a huge trigger snob, it's pretty solid. In conclusion, this is a good gun. If you can find the ammo for it, which is one of the reasons I don't suggest getting 22 Magnum, I would buy it. If you like lever actions, you want a nice lever action, or if you've ever heard that Henrys have nice lever actions, if you want something to plink with, or screw it, if you just like the way it looks, I would not pass one of these up if I were you, if I had the ability to buy one. Now, on account of the feeding issues mentioned earlier and just the overall lack of availability of 22 Magnum, I don't know if I would get it in that caliber. I would probably either go 22 long rifle or 17 HMR, both of which are great calibers for their own reasons. But if it comes in a caliber you like and you can pay for it and you have the option to buy one, I would not recommend against it. Overall, great buy. Highly recommend.